pleased to have in the studio with me Mark Perchuk.
Perchuk, you got it perfectly right.
There you go. Mark Perchuk, who is the director of Grassroots Change. GrassrootsChange.net is the website, .net. And you can tweet him at PERTSCHUK or GC Public at GC Public Health. Right?
Mark with a K at grassrootschange, one word, .net.
Oh, well, that would be your email address.
Right.
I was giving your Twitter.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I'm 58 years old, so I'm still catching up.
That's all right. Yeah, I'm 64. We're all still catching up.
And I'm on California time.
Anyhow, Mark is the former president and executive director of Americans for Non-Smoking Rights, and in '95 co-founded Californians for Responsible Gun Laws. And I wanted to talk with you about gun laws in the United States and what's going on. And there's like activity on both sides. There are these states that are, what is preemption and what is going on?
Sure. So
let's start there.
Back up a little bit. So the National Rifle Association is, I think, needless to say, a very strong grassroots organization. It happens to be on, in my personal view, the wrong side of the issue, but they have undeniably a strong network of grassroots activists and a very strong sense of how to manage a grassroots movement. In their case, it's pro-gun. And so the $64,000 question with gun violence prevention is, how do we grow a powerful grassroots movement to stop gun violence as opposed to promote gun violence? And that's where preemption comes in, because in 43 states, the state legislature, at the behest of the gun lobby, has taken away all local authority, county and city authority, to do anything about guns and ammunition.
In 43 states?
43 states. And they've done that because in the remaining 7 states, like California and Massachusetts, which do have local authority, there are powerful grassroots movements, but they're limited by the fact that, for example, in California, which has the strongest gun laws in the country, and as a result of a 12 or 13-year-old grassroots movement that's very powerful, the gun control movement, if you will, in California is as strong, if not stronger, than the pro-gun movement. The problem is Nevada, Arizona, and Oregon, which have these absurdly weak laws, and they all have preemption. That is to say that the state of Nevada, the state of Oregon, have taken away citizen democracy at the local level. No one, no city council, no local unit of government in any of those 3 states or 40 others can do anything to stop gun violence.
Wow.
It's
so the Supreme Court today said, no, we're not going to hear this case out of Illinois, out of one of the Chicago suburbs, where that suburb had banned assault weapons and high capacity clips. And Scalia and Thomas were so outraged about it that they wrote a dissent, and which is nuts. I mean, a dissent to a challenge for cert, or for a request for cert. But what it did is it left intact the ban on assault weapons in this town in Illinois. So I'm assuming that Illinois must be one of those, what did you say, 7 states?
Right. Illinois,
that does not
California,
have
Hawaii, and Hawaii, which doesn't border on a state with really poor, dumb gun laws, has very low rates of gun death and gun
one of the
injury.
lowest in the United States, don't they?
The lowest.
Yeah, the lowest. And a common argument that is made, particularly by pro-gun conservatives who will come on this program and debate these issues with me, is, oh, look at all those murders in downtown Chicago. Those are guns that are being used, and they're illegal in Chicago, but they're still there. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, and we're talking with Mark Perchuk, who is the director of GrassrootsChange.net, is that in New York, if you take a demographically identical group of people in New York City, largely low income, largely African American community, or a Hispanic community, in either case, I mean, there's pockets of both, and probably some white communities that are having gun problems in Chicago as well. But it's all the media attention is on the African American community. If you take a New York community, same income, same racial profile, same basic demographic in New York, they're going to have many fewer gun deaths, much less gun violence than in Chicago. And the reason why at least I've heard this, is that New York is not surrounded by states where you can't drive 10 minutes out of Manhattan and buy a gun. You can drive 10 minutes out of Chicago into Indiana and buy a gun right on the border where the gun stores are.
That's right. You know, I mean, there's good news and bad news. The good news is you have to drive a lot longer in New York. The bad news is that there are many states where criminals, where gun traffickers can buy quote unquote legal firearms and then sell them illegally in 12 or 16 hours, however long it takes to get back to New York, for example, and open the trunk. Right. And so that's the weakness. But the weakness is not with the laws in Illinois or the local laws or the state laws or in California, in New York. The weakness is with those, unfortunately, dozens and dozens of states that have taken away local democracy on this issue, which it does two things. It prevents places like the community in Illinois from having meaningful laws regulating firearms, regulating ammunition, but it also destroys the possibility of building the kind of powerful grassroots movement that a lot of us would like to see.
Yeah, this is kind of Bernie Sanders 101. I mean, he's all about grassroots movements. Let's build them. Let's make them work. And you did that with tobacco. How did you do it with tobacco? Or rather, let me rephrase that. What are the lessons from movement building for tobacco laws that can be used now for gun laws?
Well, the success of tobacco control, which really was the non-smokers' rights movement in the United States. This was a time, I'm old enough to remember, you may be old enough to remember when they were smoking on airplanes.
Oh, yeah.
We've had a radical revolution, both in policies around tobacco, smoking, the tobacco industry, but also a cultural change for the better.
Yeah.
And so we can learn an enormous amount from that movement, and it is sort of a model movement. And so that started as individuals all over the country, few organizations like the Heart Association and organizations like Minnesota Group Against Smoking Pollution and Californians for Non-Smokers' Rights, but a lot of individuals, flight attendants, for example, who were getting very sick, chronically ill, and ill in the short term from smoking on airplanes, commercial airline flights. And all of those folks came together in the 1980s. And had two things going for them: passion and coordination. There was national coordination outside the Beltway. It was a genuine grassroots movement. And so there are many lessons from that, one of which is that you have to fight or repeal state preemption or federal preemption in any of these issues you want to make progress on.
So we have about a minute left here, Mark. What can people do if they live in a state that has preemption?
Talk about it. And you don't have to talk about it as preemption per se. You can say, we need local democracy. We need to be able to protect ourselves from firearms violence, from firearms at the local level. Why is the pro-gun lobby, why is my legislator, my state legislator, taking away my authority to make decisions, or the authority of my city council to make decisions to protect me? Right. What are they afraid of?
Right. What happened to democracy? Are you familiar with Tom Lindsay and Seldev?
Yes, of course.
Community environment. Yeah.
They're wonderful, and
Tom's an old friend,
and they're dead right, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're doing the same thing with preemption laws around around poisoning basically communities whether it's a hog farm or a fracking operation.
And Seldev and our organizations are unique in that we really cross over issues. For example, we're both interested in the impact of factory farms on human health, but also on the environment. So they're doing very important, fundamental work about democracy.
Yeah.
You know, we've lost control of so much of what goes on in Washington, and unfortunately, that's true of a lot of the state legislatures. We need to get that back, but in the meantime, we desperately need cities and counties to be able to exercise democracy.
Yeah. Gee, what a great idea! Democracy. Who would have thought? Mark Perchik, the director of grassrootschange.net. Mark, thanks for dropping by.
Tom, thank you so much.
Great to have you with us. We'll be right back.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
That is grassrootschange.net. Check it out. Say hi for us. To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.